I'm Nadine Sangu, and I will be reading a poem that I have written called Puddock Spittance for the Elphinstone Sessions. Excuse me. Puddock Spittance is a term for the little frothy white bits that you get on grass in the morning that looks a little bit like it could be frog or maybe fairy spit. And the poem's about expressing your love to someone within the context of nature and your beautiful surroundings. I have carved out a bed atween blades of green. Come awa, McQuine, and wet the grass with me. Unfurl yoursel aneath the tongues of floors, eens that blether wi' beasties, eens that dirl fan wi' pour yourselves into een another, the two us together. Ill trick it, and a wee bitty drook it. A sweat for your dreams drips onto the earth, soaking the fields like puddock spittins. The sun bracks o'er our bodies, cracking open all stories, festering in our bones. We bleed out our beginnings. This land we've baptized is infinite, a gift to us, and muck it, we gie ourselves back to it.
Hello, my name is Sheila Reid and I come from Aberdeen. I'm a retired teacher and I've been writing poems and stories in Doric for quite some time now. This poem is called Immigrant Scurries. And scurries, as I'm sure some of you ken, is the word for seagulls. As if the team were colours fae were granite in were ale and were sun-bleached haar, the scurries stan, beak to tail, in the teeth o' a hailsteen Baltic gale. A ruffle of feathers is a' the wind gets for howlin' roon the flat-roofed high-rise. It's the new day's raise, for migrant scurries settle to nestle their young. Noo, div they, like a' incomers, dream about the old days? Nae doot there's a flashback or twa o' dive bombing a teeming trawl net and skimming the deck for slippage at heart-stopping speed, then up, gloriously up, wi' a gullet full o' pleasure. But needs must change and adjust in the face of barges as big as Benahee, wi' their barren cargo for the rigs in the sea. Chasing fit's left of the shoreline's titbits is a waste of time for little mair than an amuse-bouche. Rather a flyby's punt for a gourmet starter, and for a handy windlift to the council landfill for as ample daily breed. Come spring, over-ripen and gonads balloon. It's their annual chemical flood. Nae scurry porn needed here. Life-bonded pairs bow to the commune, their sheer, bare-faced lovey-doveyness a flagrant challenge to the unpaired. Een or twa try it on for a final shove-off to the skirling mob on the hotchin roof o' hen. Are they bide? Season long and battle ready for marauding magpies and craws. The breeding pairs have acres of space, to themselves and their bairns. A sea change, far frae the crushing intimacies of the owl cleft face, wi' its lurking cannibalism. Here, for now, their bairns are safe.
My name's Shane Strachan and I'm a writer based in Aberdeen and an honorary graduate of the University of Aberdeen's Word Centre for Creative Writing. And I'm going to read a poem I was commissioned to write for the Look Again Festival in 2016 in response to the Tollbooth building on Aberdeen's Union Street. And the poem's called The Ward Hoose. Through these wee windows a splinter o' lech seeps in for the world outside. Crammed in sandstained cells, bodies scrape and chafe bodies as the air turns sour. Heavy chains weigh down or bleeding wrists tethered ticht wi' iron padlocks. Like the granite steps ahin the wooden cell door, our minds seen spiral. We beg for water, bawling greet from our beating and skirling our sleep. Seem will be silence, be scolds brutal, choking noose or blunt guillotine. Through these wee windows, this splinter o' licht fades fast to the dark o' night.
Alderare, slavering, slubbering, gibbering, jabbering, roon we a wallop, a skleiter, a sweel. Yonder's the burn, and its bairnhood it's blabbering, hechloping puddick wi' ver in its heel. Bellied and dachling, it's dashed and it's trachling, beached in a bog like a biblical whale, hashing and dashing, it's up and it's clashing, skelpit and skiting like chaff i' the flail. Come the fey necht van the gloam in his glistery, lang as a note on a tenuous string, black as a swan o' immaculate mystery, doon rouse the burn on a sang and a wing. Dulcet as Chopin, Menuhin, Beethoven, Jinky Stravinsky, as Brangin as Bach, sign would abide be it thorold and tighted, drink o' its music, a strang willy wacht.
My name is Jo Gilbert, and I'm a writer and spoken word artist from Aberdeen. This poem was written as a commissioned piece and was first shown in a film as part of the Across the Grain Festival, and it's called Fa We Are. It's recht fine to ging awa, but there's nothing like coming back. We answer the call of the land whispering, you've been awa too long. Mon hame quine, come awa my loon, the northeast is fa ye are. And we are hame. Tied together fae mountain to sea, we are the colour of autumn leaves, and athing and a tween. We are rich in beauty. We are the mouth of the dawn, the length of the dee. We are swans nesting in the reeds, pink-footed geese getting fat on spilt grain. We are the first spit of rain and the salt tang of the air. We are the cry of the cormorant on our shallow coasts, the sand in our dunes. Our lungs hud the roar of the waves, and we are winter's breath, the clang o' industry and energy, engines of ships coming in, we a good haul to sell. We are the call of the fish house and the shelter o' the harbour in a storm. We are dreich days and the kiss of summer. We are shards of sunlight bracken through the clouds. We are spring buds rising up, willing to grow. Soft as petals, tough as granite. We are tuchters and toonsers and farmers and fishers, bobbies and roughy-toughy North Sea tigers. We are poets, dancers, musicians, filmmakers, teachers, and a manner of things. But we are mair than fit wi' dee. We are our feathers and mithers and family and friends. We are the city and shire, and a thing we admire in others. We are assets and defects, doing our best. We're a just trying to scrape by, to suss out our place. We are a melting pot of folk fae away, we're a Archie's bairns. So welcome, mon in. Find yoursel a shell that fits and mak it your ain. We are the northeast, and this is our hame, your hame. We are hame.
Well, this is a story about a selkie. And I dinna ken if you ken what a selkie is, but it's a seal that can turn into a human. And fisher folk o'er Scotland believe in selkies, and they believe that when they come out of the water, they take off their skins and they turn into human beings. And then, of course, they put their skin back on and scoot away into the water again if anybody comes near. So this story is a selkie story. There was eens a fisherman fa bid in a wee hoosie just recht on the shore side. He bid a by himself, but he was a happy man. He didn't feel a need to bide with other folk. Until a day. A day he come back for the fishing, and he'd pulled his boat up onto the shore, and he was just heading back to the hoose when he heard singing. What was that? It was a sound like he'd never heard afore. It was beautiful. So he creeped over to the rocks to hae a wee teat at fa was doing this bonny singing. And right there, down in the cove, round by the sea, was a bourich, a selkie folk. He couldn't believe it. His grandfather had told him about it, but he didn't actually really believe that there was such thing as selkie folk. But there they were, right in front of him, singing their hearts out, dancing and laughing and having a bra time. Well, he just stood there transfixed. He couldn't believe his een. And then he spotted their skins lying there on the steen, just in front of him. And he thought, oh, if I had een of them, I could let folk ken about what I've seen. They would have to believe me if I had a skin. So he creeped up and grabbed one of the selkie skins. And he was just walking away home, thinking to himself, hey, this is magic. This is grand, because now I can show folk that there is such a thing as selkies, and I bet somebody would buy this skin for me, and fit a load of siller I would get for it. Oh, this is just fantastic. And he's busy thinking his thinks, and he never hears the lass coming up ahin him until she taps him on the shoulder. Fit a flag he got! And he turns round, and there is this bonny, she was bonnier than bonny. She was the most beautiful quine he'd ever seen. And he instantly fell in love with her, and he wanted to marry her. But the poor lassie was greeting, and he says, "Fit ails you, quine? Fit's wrong?" "Well," she says, "you've got my skin, and I want to go back to the water with all my other folk." "Oh no," says the fisherman, "you canna. I want to marry you. You'll hae to bide here and be my wife. Will you nae bide with me? I'll be off agreed to you." Well, she prigged and pleaded to get her skin back so she could go back to the water. But he was a stubborn kind of deal, and he would nae give her back her skin. So she was forced to gang to the hoosie with him. Well, it was a gay few days goodbye afore she settled down, and eventually she agreed to marry him. And years goodbye, and they had bairns. They had 7 bairns, in fact. And time just seemed to pass by, and this while she would be hunting for her skin. But he had hid it off a wheel up in the rafters, so she could never find and never get it back, and never ging back to the sea. Well, a day, the fisherman went out with his 3 sons out to the fishing, and the 3 lassies, they got awa to the market to sell some fish, and the selkie woman was left at home with her youngest loon. And she was just looking out the window and feeling real homesick. And she was watching as the water would lap onto the shore, and afore long there was a wee tear dripping down her cheek. And our loon get up and says, "Mother, what's the matter? What are you greeting?" "Oh, well," without even thinking, she says, "I'm missing my ain folk. I came for the sea, you ken." And he, of course, kent at once what that meant. because he'd heard of the selkie folk, and he thought, oh, I ken fit's going on here. And being a kind-hearted soul, he went and he got the skin off the rafters, for ae night he'd seen his father looking at it, and he couldn't find what it was, once his mother had said, far she come fae. So he went and he got the skin, and his mother, her een were brichter than they'd been for a long, long time. And she ta'en the skin, and she says, oh, thank you, my lad. You ken, I'll aye love you. I'll aye love you. And she ran down to the shore, and she put on her skin, and awa she went. And as she was swimming out, her husband and the men were coming back in the past. And she looked up into his een, and he thought, that's a weird looking seal. But they never saw each other again. But when he got home and the young son told him what had happened, he thought, aye, that was the recht thing to do, and we can all be full of joy for all the love she's given us, and we ken that she is happy in her. And that's the story of Selkie.
Diddle-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-d